Hello everyone, this is Stacy with SF Johnson Consulting and Construction Services, and today we are going to discuss the basics of electrical estimating and what we need to kind of our methodology when we are putting together our electrical estimate, how to break it down, how to make it easy for you because man, electrical has to be the most time consuming and can be the most difficult trade to do an estimate for. You have to make sure you pay good attention to detail. All the symbols look alike, but they are not and tend not to be. You'll find a lot of mistakes. And so the biggest thing about producing the electrical estimate is that you have to have a good counting tool. So you have to have a tool that will assist you in counting and help you in not making mistakes. Okay, and so when we think about the basics of our electrical estimate, we know that the electrical set, if it does not have a site plan, right, will have two plans. It'll have the power plan and it'll have the lighting plan. The power plan is everything in the building that needs power, and it tends to be the most difficult of the two plans. And the lighting plan is the plan where all the lights are and how they're controlled. And then the third thing that makes completing an electrical estimate really difficult is determining your wire and conduit totals for branch circuitry for your power plan. If it's not already noted on the plan, sometimes they'll note it on the construction docs, so you just follow the lines where they lead you, but in a lot of cases they're not shown, especially for the lighting plan, and so you have to make sure you kind of understand, you do understand the symbols on the lighting plan, and that can somewhat assist you in determining a route to draw your lines for your wire and your conduit. For your single line diagram, it's pretty simple because the panels are where they are on the plan and they go to a particular other panel, and that is where it is, and so it's easy to be accurate with those totals. But again, when you're doing the wire and conduit totals, you're not going to get the exact same number as the electrician, or 10 electricians that are doing the same thing is not going to get the same number. But what you want to do is make a good effort to represent the branch circuitry and the lighting based on the plans in the best way you can. And in the neatest way you can, because if you're an electrician, you're not just going to throw the wire all over the ceiling. You're probably going to run it, everything that's going to one panel, you'll probably be running that all together somehow, and gathering it all together on one side of the building. And if another panel is in the middle of the building, then you're going to run and route everything towards that way. So that kind of helps too. Okay, and so you need a good counting tool and you need a good segment tool to measure lines and lengths. Okay, and so we'll look at an actual estimate to show you what you want to think about when you are doing your getting your estimate together. Now, this is the way I represent it, and I've completed electrical estimates, only God knows how many, and electricians like the format because it's very clear. It tells them everything they need to know, and if they know their trade, which they do, they can determine if the numbers that you're giving them is kind of crazy or not, or overboard. Okay, and so you got to think, okay, number 12 wire, you're going to have always a lot more of that. Because why? Because most of the power components run with 3 number 12s. And so you'll run one length for the conduit, but you got to times that by 3 if we're talking about the home runs. Okay, and so, yeah, so the way we break it down, we have a section for our wire and our conduit. So all of the wire, for even including for the single line, and then MC cable. Most of the branch circuitry can be run with MC cable, where all of the home runs, of course, have to be number 12. Or if it's a particular type of mechanical equipment, it's going to tell you need 3 number 10s and a number 6, or vice versa, or whatever, and you'll know from that. Okay, and so we break that down, all the wire, all of the conduit totals by length, and of course we use a cost book to give us the material cost for the wire and the conduit. Now, rest assured that if you use a cost book that's very accurate like we use Craftsman. Well, our material cost for the wire and the conduit is going to be 5% within local pricing. So, not 5% within what your supplier is going to charge you. Okay, so that's a thing to think about too. So, if you want to make sure you put the cost of what your supplier is going to charge you, you're always going to tweak these numbers because the supplier's not going to give you his cost, right? They probably going to mark it up 2 or 3 times the cost per linear foot. And so you have to keep that in mind. Just go by your material suppliers as far as the material cost. But again, if you have a good cost book, you're always going to use the man hour totals from the cost book because that will make you way more competitive and in line with industry standard because these numbers come from the industry standard, meaning it equates to if you go to the mechanic, right? You need an alternator or mold. I don't think you need alternators unless you got a bucket, which is okay because buckets are nice. The book will tell you how long it's going to take the mechanic, right? Well, same thing for the construction industry. Construction industry knows how long it's going to take to do absolutely everything. And so that's per unit. So it takes 0.017 of a man hour to install 1 linear foot. So it does the math and it's 15.73 linear foot. You want to always do something like this. You want to always get it from a cost book. You're always going to win, especially if you bid a lot. And I'm always going to lose clients because I'm always telling them my secrets. But that's okay because when you never lose, right? So use a cost book because you want to be accurate. You don't want to go by, I've been doing this for 30 years. It's going to cost this much because you could be shorting yourself. And you could be overcharging the client and you won't win. And so by using a cost book, you're in line with industry standard. You can, test the waters, send out, if you've been to 3 GCs, send them all the lowest or send each one, tweak it a little, every estimate, whatever. But always try to go by industry standard, okay? You'll always be guaranteed to be really close in the competitive portion. And then your material costs, you just got to make sure don't go with one supplier, right? There's suppliers all over the country. You can send your stuff to 8 of them. Right? And just go with the lowest. Most of them are free shipping, all that stuff. So that's something to always think about as a electrician, and the estimator is supposed to give good tips too. So, all right. So counts. You got to make sure you have everything, all your wiring devices, everything from our power plan basically is on here. All your junction boxes for your TV outlets, for your phone outlets. Don't forget those. Plus, it's always going to say 3/4 inch conduit to the ceiling. So make sure you know how high the ceiling is. It could be 10 feet. It could be 16 feet. It could be 12 feet, whatever. So you want to make sure you have all that. And then all of everything basically in the switchgear portion for me is everything in the single line diagram and all of the disconnects and all of the breakers. Okay, and so you get these numbers, by counting the breaker panel, and I've got this many of that, good counting tool. And then cost book will give you a pretty good, for all of your disconnects and all of your breakers and stuff, you can go by the cost book. They give you a pretty good, up to a point. You see where I have zeros. So up to a point, sometimes your material, you want to go with your, for the electrician, you always want to go with your supplier, especially nowadays and since COVID and stuff. And so I leave all these zeros, but I do the man hour totals, and all that comes from a cost book. And again, the cost book is what the industry says. You can do it in less time. And most people say, it's giving me 15 hours. I can do it in. Okay, well, that's great. But adjust it. Right? Put 7 hours, then you'll be even more competitive. But this is what the cost book says. So I'm not trying to cheat you from the cost book. You can cheat yourself after you know what it should be. All right. So, and then all of our lights, right? Counting tool, really good counting tool. And again, you're going to get your lighting package depending on the type of, if it's like an Applebee's or Cheesecake Factory, they have a supplier. You call them, they'll give you the material cost for all the lighting package, and you just fill in the blank afterwards. But of course, we give everything an hour for the lighting. And you can be even more detailed than that because most things don't take an hour. Unless it's a track light, then we give 0.25 of an hour for that. And then bottom line, we have the permits. You got to add that. Trenching, if it applies to your site, if you have a site lighting, because some of my electricians have to be responsible for the trenching of the underground, power, whatever. So you want to have that. Switchgear package costs, fire package. Some high voltage electricians do that too. And then the lighting package, fill all in the blanks. And this is our number minus overhead and profit, and fill that in. But you go to our set. So this one happens to have a site plan. And so, straightforward, this is probably doing too much. They may go zip, zip, well, from here to that. Who knows? But I don't know. But I do the most, I'm not saying that, I don't think that's conservative. But, this may be, in the real scheme of things, if they have to trench that, they may not trench it again to go there. They may just go back here and then go like that. Who knows? But for the purpose of our estimate, every estimator has to figure out that same thing. So we're going to give it the most leeway. Okay? In terms of, so we know this is underground. We know that's PVC because it's site, right? So we don't have to think twice about that. And we know that it's 3 number 10s and a 3/4 inch PVC. Home run 2, position number 3 in panel C. So the panels where I took it from here, and then once I get into the building, I add whatever additional wherever the panel is in the building. And you got to account for it coming up, right? PVC, 2 EMT, or rigid, or whatever. So just add like 10%, nothing that's mind-boggling. Especially for initial estimate, because you want to bid as much as you can now. But once you win what they consider you, you want to go back with a fine-tooth comb and say, okay, is everything covered? Now, I made everything not covered, so this is our power plan, and these are all of our outlets and all of our everything. Duplex, right? Phone and data, so I know that's a duplex junction box as opposed to a simplex or a single one. Let's see, fill in everything. This had a lot of bubbles. Okay, so good counting tools is critical. Now, when it comes to your branch circuit, right, you got to look at where everything is connected. These are both going to position 27, panel E, so I could say these are connected here, and they're probably home run to that position, right, because they're quads, so yeah. Okay, same thing here. I can run it here, branch circuit, and then I'm going to run an imaginary home run to wherever E is as far as running the wire. Okay, let me see where I have my power wire. Do I have it? I might have done it on a different page. Okay, no, there it is. See? So things I know that are going together to the same position on the panel. Okay, I'm going to run those all together, and then I'm going to home run that from that end somewhere to wherever here's relocated C, and where's E? So normally they'll put everything like close. Yeah, here's E, panel A, E, and B, and C, and then the disconnects. Okay, so all we can do is make the lines from where the plans say the stuff is. Okay, and we're giving it a good representation. We got some underground, so that's going to be PVC, and then we have to transition it up through the new partition. This is a floor box. It shows it on the table, but chances are it's in the floor. where the, contacts are anyway. Okay, and so you have to do all of that. Okay, and all your lights. And the same thing with the lights. You know that they're going to E6, every other one, E6, all of these are going to E6, so you want to maybe put a little more diagonal, add 10 or 20%. Because you got to, you want to give a good representation if it's not already given. Because we know these two are going to the same place and then going to that, and they're all going to be connected. And, so you want to do your best to give it a good representation of how the electrician may run the wire. And then I think we added like 10 or 15, 25%. Okay, and that the electrician, will be able to determine if that's a good number, and then we give them the takeoff. It's like, hey, should we be doubling this? Because the person that does the work doesn't know exactly how you should do it. Okay, CT cabinet. Now we had to determine for our power how far, because the main distribution panel. And let's go to. We had a good counting tool. Okay. Good counting tool, because you have to count all your breakers. And where's the single line? I think it was maybe in the beginning. So you got to look at the single line and say, okay, where is the single line? Single line, where are you? Okay, well, we're just gonna keep it moving. I don't know. Where is it? Did I check there already? Of course, no, I did not. Okay, so mechanical equipment, you want to make sure you know any of the home runs, basically, that are not all just number 12. And you want to pull that out, make sure you know where that is and run it to the proper, So you'll have all of the wire configurations, number 8s, number 10s. So everything's not always 3 number 12s, depending on the piece of equipment. So that's why they give you that. You got to make sure you pull that out. Go back to the power plan, figure out where that piece of equipment is, and do your linear measure to the panel that it should be, and then say, okay, it's 3 times that distance, and then 1 times that distance for the number 10, and then a 1-inch conduit. Okay, so then for the single line, right, for all of the feeders, you have to physically go to the power plant. We saw that the main distribution panel was on the outside of the building. In relation to panel A, got to find it. So we look here and we say the main distribution panel is connected to A, to B, to C, and to D. And then it looks like B and E are connected. And I got to figure out all of the physical distances for all of the power feeders to know the exact lengths, right? So I say, okay, where's the main distribution panel? We just saw it right here. So from there to all of the panels, pretty much. So we had to let's see. There we go. Oh, there already. Main distribution panel. Let me take it out. There we go. Main distribution to A and B is that one. Main distribution to D. Take it out. Is that one. Main distribution to C. Take it out and put it back. Is that one. So now I know those actual lengths. Plus add like 10 feet. Okay, so the basics of electrical estimating is having a real good counting tool and practicing on your conduit links. Now, you may look up and get some plans that already have all the lines drawn and you just follow those, but when you don't, just know when it's the power plan, this is telling you that these two outlets are going to the same position in the panel, so the power feeder I can use for that can run together. Same with this, same with that. And these can run together. E25, oh, we did. And then at some point, we're going to imaginary run it to the appropriate panel for the home run, which we did. And we did that already. Okay, so that's the only tricky part. Good counting tool. Count all your devices, run all your wire, and pay good attention to your single line because this is where the money is at. So you have to know, make sure you really measure very well those links because those higher wires are very expensive as opposed to number 12. So you want to be very accurate in your measurements. Okay, and then you have a beautiful estimate all broken down in the way you want, but the way we know our electricians like is all the wiring conduit, all the wiring devices, then everything in the single line and the disconnects. Then we go to the lighting plan and then any additional items. Okay, so we would love to teach your class one-on-one. We teach for only $100 a month. We will design a plan for you where we'll meet once or twice a week. You'll have tests and you'll get certified. But if you have any questions, please send me an email at education@sfjohnsonconsulting.com. Let me know what you think, and please look out for the next presentation. Have a good one.